Good morning and welcome to Daily Game Design. I think there's something about my hands I never really know what to do with at this moment. However, here we are. Oh, um, so I just tried to reconnect with my contact at Adra this morning and just got a response. There's some surprises there. So we'll have to follow up with her to see how she's doing. Um, okay, so I have a little preview for you. This is like a kind of a taste, a kind of hint at what's coming for tabletop games. And it has to do with a series of like slow evolving discoveries. For a long time, I've had an understanding that games do something in people. And this was partly brought on by seeing myself change as a chess player. Okay, stick with me. And at the same time, I was learning more about identity, more about value, more about freedom, more about faith. These things came together. They're linked in my point of view. They're very much linked. So my experience with games and my experience with faith, they intersect here. And it is, as I started getting more interested in chess and seeing that there's this whole language and history, and as I watched chess streamers, and this was pre-COVID, I started to get the sense that even I could learn to play chess. Chess was one of those things that I was intimidated by. I'd heard, wow, these people can think like 15 moves ahead and whatever. So anyway, I stumbled across somebody's stream. I know who it was. Grandmaster Gold, what's his name? I actually can't think of his name. Very goofy guy in St. Louis. And what is his name? At the same time, I was teaching a course at the University of Buffalo. And it stood out to me. We were talking about persuasion. We were talking about taking positions. It stood out to me that he was talking about positions, literally talking about positions on the chessboard. And it was my first time to see and to hear this sort of discourse and see that he was playing like 3-minute games. I'd never heard of that. And anyway, I downloaded an app. I think this was one of the earlier, it was an early version of the Magnus app. Played the computer a little bit, started understanding, the very, very early, very, very basic ideas of opening theory. Didn't know that's what it was. Continued watching streamers. Wow, now I kind of want to find this guy. What is his name? Like very dry humor. Chess GM Gold. I think it's Gold something. Yeah. Okay, Benjamin Feingold. That's what his name is. Super goofy, super dad jokey guy. Like really quirky and just kind of entertaining to watch and listen to. And then from there, I started watching more streamers. There's another guy, Eric Rosen. Then eventually I found the Chess Bras, and there were two, Levy Rossman, Hikaru. I forget what Levy's friend's name was, but anyway, then I played quite a bit, was getting into it, found that there was a free app, and found that I could do some analysis. And as I watched, the more I immersed myself in the culture of chess, which is to say there's these people participating in tournaments, there's people coaching. I just kept watching and kept playing. I started getting better. I started seeing how actually really what it is becoming familiar with the world of chess and its language. and its personalities, all of that. And also just the fact that like the more I had repeated experience, the more practice I had with chess, the better I got. The more I understood, okay, so like that just happened to me on the chessboard. What would I do in the future? Next time I saw this position, what should I do? And I started being able to anticipate things, counter things, initiate things, types of board states. And I mean, I'm not amazing now, but like I am much, much stronger than I was. And let me tell you, this is after about 15,000 games of chess. Okay. So, yeah. At the same time, while all that was happening, years of just ingesting chess. At the same time, I was having this new encounter with God, a new way of thinking about faith and about freedom and about identity and value. Realizing that that things can be true about me whether I believe them or not, whether I know about them or not. God has built a reality which has infused me with value, which gives me inherent value. And when I act in alignment with, and when my mind is in alignment with that understanding of who I am and what I'm worth, things change, right? This is now living in the freedom that I was meant to live in. So all of these things, right? So it's like, you think about the kind of psychological effect, leaving perfectionism behind, leaving fear-based rules following behind, and now just kind of stepping forward in confidence, experimenting, trying new, trying new ventures, building new things, establishing new relationships, all this stuff without so much of the hesitation and the fear that I lived with before. Wow, like this, you can hear in my own thinking, like this was fundamentally life-changing for me. These two things coming together, faith and games, So anyway, now the further we've gone into it, and the more I've gotten into games, of course, from chess, then I expanded into tabletop games in general, hobby games, more modern hobby games. And this is now where the community around me is built up. Like I spend more time with gamers. If you think about gamers as a community, I spend more time with gamers than I spend with anybody else. Although I love my church friends, I don't see them nearly as often. And now, of course, I got into game design and everything. So from seeing the change in myself from that point, also, I started to notice there are other benefits to games. Other benefits, like things, this is an observation completely unstudied, I should say, unresearched, but it feels to me, even if it's anecdotal, it feels to me like a pattern. And that is, the more I played games with very experienced gamers, the more I noticed that they tend to be more emotionally stable at the table. This is not 100% applicable, whatever, across the board, whatever the board is. I know that there are still volatile people who sit down at the table that have played thousands of hours of board games. However, when I see people who are not as experienced sit down at the table, very common. This is not for I'm not attributing what I am just about to describe to every less experienced gamer, but I see reticence. I see people who are overwhelmed and nervous, and people who are kind of trying to protect themselves, their feelings of that there seems to be this connection between their performance and their sense of identity and intelligence. So I actually see a lot of people avoiding board games altogether because, this is my view on it, because it looks to me like they're afraid to look stupid. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid to have strong feelings. They're afraid to feel overwhelmed or attacked or ignored or whatever it is. Like these things that games actually simulate for them because we all know that there's a distance between us, between what's happening in a game and what's happening in our real lives. But I think it's hard to tell the difference. I think our bodies cannot actually tell the difference. And this is, again, this is just my own theorizing happening. So, uh, I really felt, okay, there's something really psychologically powerful about gaming and what games offer as possible experiences. They give you practice with something, and I was trying to figure out what that something is. It's practice with self-talk and remembering that actually the mistakes you make in this game don't have anything to do with you necessarily and your inherent value. They have to do with the kinds of things that you should learn from and remember for the next time you repeat this game, the next repetition. So again, coming back to reps, right? Coming back to practice. So it's like growth mindset stuff, not fixed mindset. The stakes in games are very, very low, but it's amazing to me that, yeah, people don't feel that as they play. So anyway, so now as I view games, I view games as opportunities to explore, opportunities to discover things about myself, things about the other players, things about systems in games and efficiency and probability. So there's all these cool, like, real life moments that games offer on a small scale in a small space. And we can sit through those things together. So not only do you see changes on the individual level, like in yourself, the more you play games, the more you trust that your performance does not indicate your value, the more you realize that your mistakes don't change how you should view your sense of self and intelligence, all that kind of stuff. That's happening. But you also realize that there's a really, yeah, there's also not just the individual change, but there's like all these social opportunities where we build things together. We learn to relate to each other differently. I still remember a game when I was in college. We played a game of Mafia. There was a girl I was interested in at that time. And I remember her being so upset with me that I was like one of the Mafia. And she was, of course, like one of the cops or whatever it was. And the way she carried, like how she carried that, the idea that like I that I lied to her, right? Now I could be dismissive of it. It's in a game, whatever. But it's interesting to see how, games, what they simulate, and the scale they operate on, they actually affect real relationships. People experience these things as reality. And so I think we also get to learn to trust each other, play characters while we're playing games, and realize that socially, the bridges that we build socially in games, like those should be stronger. They should outlast whatever drama the game produces. Like if we can understand that the stakes are very low, nothing, like no matter what you do in this game, we're going to be friends after. No matter what feelings you feel during this game, we're going to be friends. Okay, no matter what you steal from my hand, no matter what you do, no matter how often you lie to me in this game, our relationship is going to last. Wow. Right? So to come with that posture, think about how on us practicing these things on a small scale actually translates to real life. Games are practice, aren't they? Games are fundamentally practice. They're simulations for real life problems and puzzles, right? So I think we should take that seriously now. But here, there's another step, a step further, which I was aware of, and I understood on some level, and you'll see why. But here's the thing. In order to be good at teaching, hosting, and playing games, you must be a good leader. You must be. Now, there's a lot going on, right? In those three things, there's different things. Three very, very different things. I think you could be one of them without being, I think you could be good at one of them without necessarily being good at the other two. But the full package, imagine the capabilities of that leader, the competencies of that leader. Now, let me describe this. So, teaching. What does teaching involve? Teaching involves having a clear understanding of the task at hand. So you need to be aware of it. You need to understand the thing deeply in order to communicate it, right? Of course, then the next thing would be communicating those things, those parameters, those systems, right? Those operations. So you need to be able to communicate those things. That's not easy. Why? Because audience matters. So a good teacher understands their audience. That's not easy, right? That takes understanding context, understanding the moment, getting a sense of the person's experience and background, interest level, energy level, all of this stuff, right? You're sort of drawing these details out in the moment. You're drawing these like aspects of the moment out. You're very observant. You're paying attention. You know, where's the attention of of the players at the table? Are they engaged? Are they, you know, are they what these kinds of things, right? What sort of mental state are they in? So you're there paying attention. So you understand the task at hand. You have strong communication skills to be able to deliver what, you know, the purpose, the meaning, the rules, obviously. And you're also being very, very sensitive to your audience. Like, hello, leaders need those things. They need those abilities. They need those capacities. Okay, facilitating a game. Now we've communicated the game. We've communicated how it works. We've communicated what the goals are and how the incentive systems operate, that kind of stuff, right? Now we start playing. Well, what about hosting, facilitating these kinds of activities? Well, I think a strong facilitator at the table is there to keep the game running smoothly. What does that take? It takes helping people manage their focus at times. It helps communicating through conflict. Well, you need to be able to negotiate with players. Sometimes you need to encourage them. Sometimes you need to, encourage them to what? Encourage them to stay positive. Encourage them to not be too caught up in their own the fear of looking stupid, right? That they take super long turns. You need to encourage them or remind them that this is about something low stakes like exploring, and that no matter what, like no matter what the result of the game is, like everything's going to be okay. There will be moments where you have the opportunity to speak life into people and encourage people and make sure the game continues running. There might be times when you say, okay, you know what, everybody, this game is not a great fit for this table. How do you do that? How do you manage that diplomatically, right? That's not easy. But guess what? Leaders need to do those things. Isn't that the case? Okay, I'm sure there's lots more we could brainstorm about how facilitation requires a lot from a person, from a leader. And that good leaders, like games offer this type of repeated practice over and over and over. If you're hosting the game, you're going to get better at it. You're going to get better at catching these little things that pop up in these moments and how to maneuver through them. And so you can either complete the game or transition away from the game. Like all these opportunities, constant stream of opportunities are coming at you if you're running a game. Incredible. Okay, but let's say you didn't teach the game and you're not necessarily running the game, right? It's not your game. You don't know it super well, but you are a player. Okay? Lots of opportunities to get your mind around this world, the other people in it, the other characters in it. How does it work? What are you allowed to do? How can you get up to speed as soon as possible? How can you maintain a positive attitude through conflict and confusion, right? How can you learn to not take things personally, to always have the end game in mind? right? How can you build this thing as you run this thing? That's just like your first play, right? But imagine you become really adept at a game. Imagine you're like an expert, right? What are the things you had to be able to do? What about the game did you have to understand and internalize that allows you that where the game rewards you with the kind of feedback like winning? What did you have to do? What sort of capacities did you have to have? Problem solving, creative thinking, flexibility, right? Again, negotiation skills. Hello, we're talking leadership. We're in the world of leadership. And I didn't realize that until last week. So this is now 4 years. Okay? 4 years of being really, really immersed in the gaming world, in the gaming culture. And you can see the pieces kind of coming together, integrating. You can see them, and here we are at this point where I'm finally recognizing what we do. What we do is we find opportunities for people to share. We create opportunities for people to share their gifts and passions and to lead. And once we know that, once we understand that what we're doing is we're working with leaders and we're building leaders, now the next task is to offer or identify opportunities for our leaders to lead. That's the thing, right? That's the thing. We as whether it's planning the retreats or whoever is on board with me as we imagine events and connect with more and more community leaders and institutions as we do this. And this is why this was a hint. I didn't realize this was going to be a 22-minute hint. But as we do this, it's with this clarity in mind that gamers are leaders and leaders are servants. And what should servants do? They should get to work, right? So we have a responsibility now that I have a much clearer idea of who we have on our hands. Now it's how do we activate these people? Now, what obstacles do some of our players face? What obstacles do some of our people face? Now, I think this is the last piece, and then I'll jump into Party Wave. I've seen some patterns with gamers. And again, gaming is super diverse hobby. What I'm about to say will not apply to everybody. Totally get it. But what I see when I look out amongst the people, we had the 75-ish or so Saturday night. I look around, I see lovely people. I see people motivated to be in relationship with each other. At the same time, I see a fair amount of social anxiety. I see fear. I see reticence. I see people who have felt left out, forgotten, people who feel invisible. Because, why? Because they might not communicate in exactly the same way that they feel like their peers do. Maybe they weren't the quote-unquote cool kids in school or whatever it was. Maybe they thought differently and they communicated differently, and for whatever reason, it's been difficult for them to feel welcome and feel comfortable, like stepping into community, being around other people. Maybe for them, it feels kind of draining to be around others. I see that a lot. In fact, over the weekend, I think I mentioned this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I didn't. But we had one guy, very brave, I thought. He said, I struggle with agoraphobia, and yet here I am. Agoraphobia meaning a fear of being around in large groups and groups of people. And yet he stood up on the mic, and said, hey, I'm comfortable being here. Thank you for offering this opportunity. Okay, great. We see people step up all the time to help. The people that have been very consistent on Monday nights, we don't relate the same way anymore. Like, we talk differently to each other. And, I expect different things of those people. Like, I expect their behaviors have changed. Whether they greet me and, say goodbye when they take their leave, whether they stick around and help clean up, whether they bring a snack, whether they catch somebody at the door and say, hey, you're welcome to sit with us. Like, these people I see, just like I have grown over time in the gaming world and I've become a leader, these people are leaders too. They are becoming, they're they're becoming leaders because they lead, because they step up and they serve. And that, I think, has to be the key. Is that we understand that leadership is actually service. Leadership is seeing the value in the people around us and creating space for them to contribute whatever it is that they offer, in such a way that inspires people to be healthier, to be stable, to understand their value, to understand their identity. So even while this is like a faith-based, in my view, my worldview is informed by faith. What's really beautiful is that even while that is an underlying feature of what we do, everybody needs to know their value, that it's stable, that it's inherent, it's innate, right? Do they need to know where it comes from? Will they agree with me on where it comes from? Not necessarily. Everybody needs to know that they're loved, that they're cared for, that they have something to contribute, and we can communicate that to them until they get it. And then those people, when activated, they get to then pass on those same values. So you can see I'm pretty excited. you know, you can see I'm into this idea. That's what this. You can see I've got this like channel open here. It's a forum. I haven't really like super unlocked it yet, or like there aren't many people involved in it yet. But this is what Cabletop Ventures is going to be about. Now, is that name going to stick? Hopefully not. I think it's kind of awkward. It's weird. But at the same time, I do want my branding, I want to be known for activating leaders. So maybe I'm cool with that. I want to be known for, growth through play. So maybe I'm cool with that. Uh yeah, you know what? It's crazy. I want to even say this is maybe the last detail. But I realized that yes, we're in the leader, we are going to be in the leader activation business. But you know what that is also incidentally? That's also like suicide prevention. That's community building. That's yeah, I don't know, that's life-changing stuff. So that's what I'm about, and I'm really excited about it. So what I'm thinking, and I've actually started having conversations with people since Saturday night when I on the microphone said, I do believe gamers are leaders, and we're going to be building something that will give these opportunities that will give these leaders more opportunities to lead. So Cabletop Ventures, I'm thinking two different branches, two arms. One is for profit, one is nonprofit. I think we need to be comfortable with the understanding that people will value what we do. And what I'd love to be able to do is pay people to do what they're good at. And that means revenue. That means building business partnerships where we're making good money, right? So that we can fund projects, so that we can institute leaders and have them be free over their own time to do what they're good at. So I'm excited by that idea. Um, so there's the for-profit. What does the nonprofit look like? Well, we've got these angles where we're talking about development, we're talking about a growth mindset, we're talking about helping people, facilitating the building of healthy relationships, i.e., reducing isolation for people, right? Like combating loneliness. We're in the business of suicide prevention, incidentally, because we believe people have value and that they should understand that life has meaning and they have something to do. So we're talking about, in this case, partnering with churches, schools, libraries, nursing homes, where people, where the where the the regular person just shows up, and maybe they're struggling with something. Maybe they're looking for friends. But here we are, where we can teach about the board game hobby. We can teach about the value of play. We can remind people who they are, and that the fact that they have innate worth. And these are all these various settings that could be government owned or owned by nonprofits. Um, basically with this different type of understanding that people will want to give money to support what we do. That's pretty nuts. But I believe that. I've already heard that from somebody. A gentleman whose son joined us this past week. I told him about, like, these are our values. This is how we see ourselves moving forward. He says, yeah, that's something I would actually want to give money to. And I'm not really used to that. I'm not used to having this sort of clarity of vision, to be honest. And anyway, yeah, so I think it's because the systems is the way they are. I think it's important to be able to give people tax write-offs, and access that sort of um, those sort of funds, that sort of wealth. I want to help people distribute their money in such a way that they understand there's legacy here. People's lives have changed, and we can do it. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped. All of that was was to illustrate why there is now Cabletop Ventures, and there's a little announcements thing, and so I'll be working with the core retreat planning team to see what their interest is. Um, and then we'll invite other people to the table. It's going to be sensitive. The start of it's going to be sensitive. Defining the vision is not necessarily going to be easy or obvious. And we're going to be negotiating. And you know what? Last time we were here, this one feels different. This retreat feels different. It feels like we have a team that is ready to rock, that's really ready to do something special. And we still need more commitment. Still need a concrete understanding of, like, how can we keep these people going so that they keep operating at their best. So there's going to be a lot of challenges here. Last time we were at this place, this was after the very first retreat. We lost. Things got complicated. I lost a friendship because we had a difference of vision and could not communicate through it, and eventually that was it. And yeah, and I'm sad about that kind of stuff. So I really want to be careful as we move forward here, that we're communicating clearly, that we understand, that, yeah, that we're communicating in love, that we can get aligned on this vision. There probably will be people who might be interested in it, but might not be super on board or might not be a good fit. So I just really want to be careful about these next steps. So thanks for giving me a chance to articulate these ideas. And yeah, I hope you'll get on board. I'm excited, and I think we can do some really, really special things. So, okay, with that, I'm going to transition to Party Wave, a nice little dice placement game. Okay, so where is Party Wave at? We looked at this yesterday. Last playtest I had, the game was struggling, in part because the type of bullying, the level of bullying that players could introduce in the system. So I'm not a big fan of that. So, but anyway, I think some of it is still relevant because, you know, it kind of happens on the waves. You can get in people's way, and sometimes people are gonna fall off, and it's gonna happen. So it almost, for like realism's sake, it seems important to allow some types of interaction that might feel a little bit frustrating, right? So I just wanted to put a couple things in place, test a couple of things to see. Yeah, to see if I can make it just a little less likely. Well, give players fewer opportunities to push each other around, even if it means like kind of breaking with theme a little bit. I'm open to that. Hmm. So here is the most fundamental change, and I'll actually just kind of get into it. I'll start taking turns. I was kind of talking it through last night and how like just trying to be sensitive to like how complicated does this sound? How complicated does this sound? Okay, on your turn, roll your dice. Okay, strong start, easy to do. It's tricky at the start of the wave. I don't know yet how to simplify the wave, but here's the start of a wave. Well, okay. So roll your available dice and then place all of one number. One value. So roll your available dice, place all of one value. Okay. If you place more than one die, because you placed all of one value, mark the die closest to the shore, that's here. With your surfboard, your turn is over. If, however, you only placed one die in doing this, you may roll again and repeat this process. So roll again and place all of one value. You can do this until either you decide to stop or until there are no dice. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Okay, so if you placed one die, then you repeat the process with this exception or with this additional rule. Any subsequent dice you place, the dice you place next have to be either one higher or one lower than the die currently closest to the shore. So that's it. Does that sound super confusing? It kind of does. Okay, so let's say I start with a 3. And I place that right here on the 3s. Okay, so I rolled the dice. I placed all dice of one value. When you catch a wave, you have to place the die somewhere on the row indicated with that die value. So here is the row of 3s, and you have to place it on a space marked in blue. I don't know. That's kind of annoying. It's a little bit confusing. Okay, now that we've done that, now we say, okay, you may re-roll. You may go through this process again with this additional rule. Any dice you place after rolling must be exactly one higher or one lower in value. Okay, so let's re-roll. Okay, so the best they could do is place this 2. And now that, well, what the system used to be, that it could be one of 3 things. Lower, equal to, or higher, which is 50-50, right? That was the issue. It's like it was too easy or you were too likely to be able to place dice, so you're just going to keep rolling until you're done, until you get where you want to go. Okay, well, they placed only one die, so they're going to keep rolling. Okay, they place it. Now they could choose a 1, but obviously that means then the next roll, if they want to continue, they must roll a 2. But by placing a 3, they leave the door open to rolling a 2 or a 4. So the question is this person going to push? Yeah, sure. Okay, so they didn't roll what they wanted to, so they bust. What does busting look like, to be honest? This is tricky. What do I do here? So they rolled and they didn't roll anything that works. Do they fall off right now? Ooh, what about if you mark and then you just take any dice like that? In other words, if you were working on a shape, then sorry, too bad. But again, let me think about how this sounds. So I think it was a 3 and then a 2. Okay, so you may repeat this process. So roll and you place all of one die, but it must be higher or lower, one higher or one lower than the last die you placed. They cannot place. So what do? They end their turn by marking this and pulling off these dice. What does that accomplish? Well, it makes it impossible or really, really difficult to roll to build any shapes, but like maybe that's it. Okay, so let's say that's what busting looks like. It's not that you like completely lose the. It's not necessarily that you completely lose that wave. Also, it leaves an obstacle for other players. So I kind of like this. Is this worth writing down? I think so. Okay, here's the new model here. So I'm going to go into designs in progress, design projects. Go to add your HQ. No. Go to party wave. Okay, self playtest, focus on testing +1, -1. Also thinking about what it means to what busting looks like, right? I.e. choosing to roll, but that roll results in 0 dice the player can legally place. Actually, no, this is not right. But the player is unable to place any dice. The reason I want to say it that way, and that's not perfect, but I was reminded that you can turn in cards. So it's not that the roll matters, but what really matters, because you could get a bad roll, but you could discard a card in order to adjust a die, or to make a die whatever number was on that card. So it's not about the roll. It's really about whether or not after whatever they do, like the final result is they can't place any dice. That's the thing. Right. So I'm focusing on testing this +1 -1, which I think is much more tense. So I want to say I think that's even in this very, very limited playtest, I think that's already working. Like it felt like, okay, I rolled 2 extra times. So I rolled again, placed, rolled again, placed. So the 4th time I rolled, which is me having half of my dice left, I busted, which is great. Because that needs to be possible. It was too easy to keep rolling in the past. That's part of the point. Okay, what else am I thinking about here? Yeah, I didn't really like how it was possible to bully someone so easily. Yeah. Oh, looks like the stream is struggling a little bit here. Although it looks healthy. It looks healthy on this end. I'm curious. I mean, in OBS, I'm curious about why. Maybe it's a little dip or something. I don't know. Huh. Oh, kind of a sad thing yesterday. Well, not sad really, but I ran down to the Goodwill to check and see if my friend's games were still there. So Ryan, who was up at the retreat, tried to sell games in a mystery bag. Nobody went for it, and I get why. I think nobody wants like junk on their hands, and there wasn't really any junk there. But people have their own tastes, and they want to know what they're getting. So it kind of makes sense they didn't really go for it. But then somebody stopped by Goodwill, posted photos of shelves full of games, and I looked through the games. And I thought, huh, those look a little familiar. And then I looked at Ryan's list, which he had posted on Facebook in our group, and those were his games. And so I missed going down the very next day, but then it was yesterday. So Monday, I think somebody posted. In other words, he had dropped off games probably Sunday. Somebody checked on Monday, saw those games, posted about it. I couldn't go Tuesday. I was busy with meetings with students, but I had a window on Wednesday. I shot down there on my scooter. Beautiful day for a scooter ride. Incredible. Ran in there, got a whole bunch of Ryan's games and left a whole bunch too. Because I think I already am way over capacity with games, but it's so easy to excuse myself. Because I got like 6 games for $21. Let me go grab them. Is it 6? It is. 6 games. So these are the games that I picked up from Goodwill yesterday. I'm excited about all of them. I've never played these. These are 2 heavier ones. I have Marco Polo, the first game. I'm really excited to have the second one here. I know that they're very similar. It sounds like Marco Polo 2 is a little more generous with resources. Marco Polo, Adventures of Marco Polo, is it Adventures? Oh, this just says Marco Polo 2. I forget what the first one is. I think it's the Voyages of Marco Polo. Love that game, but it is really, really tough to get going. Like, it's very, very tight. This is a game this is one of the earlier games I played when I started getting into hobby games. This cool little dice game that really took us forever to understand. It was me and Chris trying to figure it out. This one I've been waiting for a long time, trying to get a hold of it, but I can't order it. Like from, let's say, somebody like Amazon, because it has the markers inside, and for some reason you can't ship the dry erase markers. This one, I'm just now watching a playthrough, so it's Alexander Pfister. So I thought, okay, and it's actually well rated, but I'd never heard of it, and I was a little surprised about that. But it has some trappings of being a little bit of a campaign game. There's 8 chapters, but I'm watching a playthrough here, and this actually does look pretty interesting. Like a push your luck tableau builder. Looks like there's some cool ideas here. And I think you're like kind of moving around a map, building stuff. I don't really know how it works yet. This one I played with Dean. Empire's End I played with Dean some time ago now. That's a 2023 game, is it? Yeah, 2023. And what I loved is that it basically implements the no thanks system, but like in a more complex, kind of wild, and yeah, it's just a more complicated way. So maybe complicated isn't a great word to use here, but John DeClaire, so I trust this guy, and I played once anyway, and I thought there's some really neat ideas, but it relies on the no thanks mechanism, which is, okay, here are all these bad things happening to your, your civilization, and you can like bid on them to keep them from happening. So you're spending resources to keep those events from happening to you. So, but eventually somebody's going to have to take that event and somebody's going to get those resources or whatever. I haven't played it in so long, but it's a really neat idea, and I thought it was cool. Okay, and then this is the one about bats and fruit bats. And I don't know, Uwe Rosenberg. I'm a little intimidated by it, but I would like to get my head around some more of these like serious efficiency puzzle games. And this one just kind of sounded thematically interesting. It's fairly well rated. I know, like, I want to say the little I heard in terms of feedback, I think like Van and Megan played it, or I'm sure they did at one point and they weren't big fans of it, but I'll give it a shot. So I ran down to Goodwill yesterday. I'm sorry if that was blasting in your ears, but ran down to Goodwill and super enjoyed the scooter ride, but it was really funny, like stacking the games on my scooter. Swung by McDonald's because some of my friends were like really excited about the new sauces with the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff. So I grabbed lunch and then made it back just in time to have a meeting with a student. So it was a fun adventure. Okay, so I think busting and falling off the wave could be different things. I don't love the idea of introducing a new term or mechanic, but this is clearly a new mechanic. Let's try again. So let's say that was yellow's turn. So now here's red. Red is going to go with the 4. Or wait, what if red starts with a 2 and is kind of trying to rush down the wave because these are all big, high-value dice. What if you could place a run of dice? No, I kind of like all of one value. But why though? Why do I need to like all of one value? It's because I think it'll be easier to remember. Oh no. Let me try just the system that I've been using. So we'll roll again. Okay, we'll go with the 4. We'll cut them off. Let's see what happens if I cut this person off. Okay, go again. They also busted. Okay. So let's keep going though. So I go there and then these come off. Okay. Next, we'll go purple. I think purple's going to want to like kind of get involved here. But if they place 2s, they have to place all of them. So are they going to do that? Let's do it. Why not? Well, would they? I think I don't know if they want to start way back with a 3, because it's actually kind of interesting that the 3 does feel pretty far back at this moment. Like if they start back here, they're way behind. But if they start with a 2, if they start, let's say, for example, they start here, I don't know, let's do it. Let's just kind of box them. Let's box yellow in and just see what happens. Okay. Oh, you know what I didn't think about at all with my discussion on like making like gaming producing leaders is game design. Like imagine us offering more game design classes, because I think game design challenges people to think also about a lot of these things. It challenges them to be sensitive to their audience, like writing rules, all of this stuff. Like how do you make a thing and how do you build an experience for people? And that's very much a leadership question, right? Okay, so same issue, but let's just box yellow in and just see what we should do about it. So they just did this. They surround yellow. Now what does yellow do? So this is a possible situation. That's why it's worth looking at here. Like this is going to happen in a game. So what do we do about it? That's the question. Okay. What do we do? Should falling off... I think if you fall off, I think we just check. Um, so clearly we need like a falling off the wave check right here. So there's a scoring check and a falling off the wave kind of check. We don't have a category. Yeah, I don't love what's happening here. Because I don't want to add like multiple steps to like... So I don't love multiple steps here. I love the scoring check at the start of the turn, but like what is part of that check? What would we call this? Because I just don't love... There's some phase at the start of the turn which asks, can you score anything or did you fall off the wave? I don't like two-part question. I feel like that would be really annoying design commitment right there. Yeah, I'd say this is the last, like figuring out what to do here is perhaps the last major hurdle. Because I'm so far with score check. Can you score a shape or do you score the wave? If you do, cool. Get some points. And then hmm. Um get some points. So if I was like, there's this kind of situation. Yeah, it's like, when does falling off the wave happen? Because they're just like among the other players right now, and they're not attempting to do anything. At the same time, I don't want them to have to roll for no reason. What do we do here? Um, oh, yeah, I don't know. Hmm. This is the final puzzle. I'm actually going to screenshot this. And just drop this in the Discord. This situation feels like the final major puzzle. What does yellow do at the start of their turn? What does does falling off the wave apply here? When would that happen? When would a player check for that? Yeah. Trouble. Well, I have quite a bit to do today. I've got to get to some cleanup still. You know, this is like the retreat that never ends. So I've got lots of things to sort of think about and pack away. I probably should write an email today to all the attendees. And anyway, then get to my class, like my online class, do some grading, something like that. Anyway, thanks for joining. And yeah, see you tomorrow. or at least see you soon. Bye bye for now.